Humans have not set foot on the moon since Apollo 17 returned in 1972. But the wait is over. Humans will soon be returning to the moon. NASA is on its way to preparing for the long-awaited journey to the moon through its Artemis program. So, what is the Artemis program? And what has it discovered and is about to discover? Welcome to another video of Fly Me to the Moon. In today's video, we will talk about NASA's Artemis program. Watch the whole video to find out about NASA's moon expeditions. But first, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's get into the video. Through the current Artemis program, NASA envisions sending astronauts to the lunar South Pole by 2025. Artemis is specifically designed to land humans on the moon and focus on Mars as a long-term human spaceflight goal. The short-term plan involves using commercial rockets in NASA's space launch system, the Orion crew capsule, and a commercial lunar landing system. A small space station in the lunar orbit called the Gateway will serve future surface missions. With Artemis missions, NASA will land the first person of color and the first woman on the moon, using more innovative technologies for exploring the lunar surface than ever before. They have decided to collaborate with commercial and international partners to bring the first long-term human-robotic presence on and around the moon. NASA's Artemis mission is seen as the next generation of lunar exploration and is named after the goddess of the moon, also the twin sister of Apollo from Greek mythology. It is a part of the series of increasingly complex missions that will pave the way to human exploration. NASA will set up an Artemis base camp on the surface and a gateway, or the lunar outpost, around the lunar orbit to aid in exploration by robots and astronauts. The gateway is a major component of NASA's sustainable lunar operations and will act as a multi-purpose outpost orbiting the moon. The Artemis program also involves other space agencies. Canadian Space Agency is committed to providing advanced robotics for the gateway. The European Space Agency will provide international habitat and the E-Spirit model, which is expected to deliver additional communications capabilities, among the others. The Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency plans to contribute to logistics, resupply, and habitation components. Orion spacecraft will remain in space without docking to a space station, which will be longer than any ship for astronauts has ever made before. 100,000 miles from Earth for over 4 to 6 weeks during the journey of the mission. It is an uncrewed space mission in which the spacecraft will launch on an SLS rocket. The initial operating goal of the mission is to ensure safe crew module entry, descent, splashdown, and recovery. Space Launch System and Orion under Artemis I will be launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, US, in 2022. The mission will end when the Orion spacecraft safely returns to Earth. Elon Musk shared a post by NASA on Twitter, which read, "One rocket, one mission." Elon Musk shared the post along with a comment saying, "Godspeed, Artemis." NASA shared the news of their new mission on NASA Artemis' official Twitter page, stating, "NASA is targeting the next launch attempt for the hashtag Artemis I mission for November 14th. NASA Ground Systems teams will roll the NASA SLS rocket and NASA Orion spacecraft to the launch pad as early as November 4th. If the Artemis program is successful, it will re-establish a human presence on the moon. For the first time ever since the Apollo 17 mission in 1972, the program's major components include the Space Launch System, the Lunar Gateway Space Station, the Orion spacecraft, and the commercial human landing systems, including Starship HLS. The program's long-term goal is to set up a permanent base camp on the moon and to facilitate human missions to Mars. The Trump administration formally established the Artemis program in 2017. Still, many of its components, including the Orion spacecraft, were developed during the previous Constellation program during the Bush administration and after its cancellation during the Obama administration. Orion's first launch and use of the Space Launch System was originally set to be in 2016, but it was rescheduled to launch in 2022 as the Artemis I mission with robots and mannequins aboard. The crewed Artemis II launch is planned to take place in 2024. The Artemis III crewed lunar landing in 2025. The Artemis IV docking with the Lunar Gateway is planned to be in 2027. We can expect future yearly landings on the moon, but some observers note that the program's cost and timeline might be overrun and delayed because of NASA's inadequate management of contractors. A prototype version of the Orion crew model was launched on Exploration Flight Test 1 on 5th of December 2014 on top of a Delta IV heavy rocket. Artemis demonstrates new technologies, capabilities, and business approaches needed for future exploration, including Mars. It also studies the moon to learn more about the origin and history of Earth, the moon, and our solar system. It establishes American leadership and a strategic presence on the moon while expanding the U.S. global economic impact. It also broadens commercial and international partnerships and inspires a new generation and encourages careers in STEM. The Artemis missions will establish a community on the moon, driving a new lunar economy and inspiring a new generation. NASA team members described their returning to the moon as the next step in human exploration, and that the lessons learned from Artemis will clear the way to Mars and further explorations. NASA is expecting to launch the Orion spacecraft and Space Launch System rocket on the uncrewed Artemis I mission around the moon. They have already begun to take the next step. Starting in 2022 and throughout the decade, they are planning to send a suite of science instruments and technology and demonstrations to the lunar surface through commercial lunar payload deliveries. Prior to a lunar surface landing, they will fly 2 missions around the moon to test the deep space exploration systems. They are working towards launching Artemis I, the uncrewed flight to test the SLS and Orion spacecraft together, followed by the Artemis II mission, the first SLS and Orion flight test with the crew. NASA reaching Moon through NASA's powerful new rocket, the Space Launch System, expected to be launched from Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, will send astronauts aboard the Orion spacecraft nearly 250,000 miles from Earth to the lunar orbit. Astronauts will board Orion at the gateway and will be transferred to a human landing system for the journey to the surface of the moon. They will return to the orbital outpost to get on Orion again before safely returning to Earth. So, what is NASA planning to do on the moon? While Mars remains the horizon goal, they have set their first sights on exploring the surface of the moon with human and robotic explorers. Astronauts will be sent to explore new locations, starting with the lunar South Pole. At the moon, they are planning to find and use water and other critical resources needed for long-term exploration, to investigate the moon's mysteries and learn more about our home planet and the universe, and also to learn how to live and operate on the surface of another celestial body where astronauts are just 3 days away from their home. The first step of the program will be the upcoming test flight of the moon rocket, known as the Space Launch System, with the Orion capsule on top where astronauts will be seated during future missions. This uncrewed flight, during which Orion will swing around the moon before returning to Earth, is to draw out any issues with the spacecraft before putting people on board. The rocks collected by the astronauts during the Apollo mission uplifted planetary scientists' understanding of the solar system. Analysis of radioactive isotopes produced precise dating of various regions of the moon's surface. The rocks also revealed a surprising origin story for the moon. It appears that the moon formed out of debris ejected into space when a Mars-sized object slammed into Earth 4.5 billion years ago. But for 2 decades after Apollo 17 in 1972, the last moon landing, NASA turned its attention away from the moon, which to many seemed to be a desolate, dry, airless world. They shifted the focus to other places in the solar system, like Mars and the multitude of moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Scientific interest in the moon never disappeared completely, though. Indeed, its desolate nature means that rocks that hardened billions of years ago remain in almost untouched condition. Artemis is the next generation of missions on the moon. It's part of NASA's extensive ambitions for lunar exploration, which include astronaut treks across the moon's surface, a lunar human habitat, and a new space station called Gateway. Artemis I also sets the foundation for the following 2 missions in the Artemis program. Artemis II is scheduled to send humans on a similar trip around the moon in 2024, and Artemis III is going to make history by landing the first woman and the first person of color on the moon in 2025. All the research on Artemis I, including Helga, Zohar, and Moonkin Campos, is meant to prepare for those later missions. So, what do you think about Artemis? Are you excited about the upcoming journey to the moon? Comment below, and also like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to check out other interesting videos on our channel.